Morning. I'm just at the hardware store. I'm gonna pick up some supplies. I keep getting distracted by things like this. 30 bucks for a big toolbox. I don't need it, but I want it. I think this is the first time that I've been here that I've actually needed a trolley. So I did make my measurements for the barrier. I will pick up some supply. I'm pretty sure it'll be this one. Yeah, it is. But I think that is not structural ply, so let me just check through this stuff. Okay, so I buying 4 pieces of ply, 2 long 1.8 meter pine, structural pine. I know the cabin is 1.5 meters across, so I need to get something that's a bit bigger, and 4 1.2 structural pine. I need to get some wood glue, but I just came past the gap fillers, so I think I will get some to fill in that one spot on the floor, because that's going to annoy me. Got me some wood glue. I also need to get some longer screws, so this is 19 plus 7, 26, plus a little bit inside the metal, 26, so maybe a 32. Actually, I think I do have 32mm screws at home, so I might leave that for now. Yeah, we'll just get started on what we have. Good morning. Back at the site with the panels. They seem to be holding up fine. The grouting looks quite nice. What else did we do yesterday? We put the wheel arch covers on, that's right. Yeah, I think that's all we did yesterday. Today I'm going to get started on the barrier. So I went to the hardware store and picked up the supplies. I'm just going to measure it, but before I do that, because the battery system is there, let's try that again. Let's see. Because the battery system is there, I will need to disconnect this stuff so that I can put the structures behind mounted against this thing here. I still haven't decided if I'm going to get a auto electrician in to hook up all the electrics. Currently I don't have time to do it myself, but if I am able to catch up on some work, then I'll call him in. Then I won't need to call him in. But because I need to move that, I forgot to check how the electrics were connected before when I ripped them out. So the previous owner had lights up against the wall there. So what I'm going to do, so I'm not overly familiar with car electronics. Electricity just comes out of a wall for me. So what I'm going to do is I've got the panel that he had previously on there. So I've reconnected up the lights the positive and negative terminals, and I'm pretty sure, with car electronics, basically only the positive terminal is run to the battery, and the negative terminal is the entire hull of the vehicle. It's just a way to cut out a lot of wiring, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So what I'm going to do is reconnect it back up. Since this is very low wattage, it shouldn't be too dangerous. Yeah, we'll see how that works. So I'm just going to try it on the lights. So these are very low wattage, so there shouldn't be any real risk doing this. So what I've got here is the positive and negative ends. So I'm just going to re-terminate that. And we'll connect it up. If my theory is correct, and the body of the car is actually what's conducting the negative terminal, if I hook this negative end to the hull, it should turn on these lights. I'm hoping that I don't actually need a switch to turn these on and off. I don't think I will, but let's give it a go. So I'm going to connect the positive end first. Okay, and let's connect up the negative. No, so that hasn't done it. Let's connect it directly to the negative terminal and we'll see what happens. Nothing. Okay. Yeah, okay. So it's because I had it the wrong way around. He doesn't actually have it labeled. So this end is the negative end. So I'll just recap that. So this end here is the positive. I'm just going to connect it directly to the car battery. Okay. And this end here is the negative end. So this end here was the negative end. My theory was the entire hull of the car is acting as the negative conduit, and I can prove that by touching it on the hull. No. Yeah, so attaching it to the hull has turned the lights on. Okay, so I've figured out how electricity works, which is good because this is gonna actually save a lot of wiring. All I need to do is to hook it up to the body of the car. I can disconnect all this stuff now, now that I know where everything goes. Okay, so I'm just about to start disconnecting the battery and the housing and stuff for it. So I just need to unscrew all the woodwork that's in there, and disconnect the positive terminal. But I'm pretty sure when you're doing this, the negative terminal is where the actual electricity flows from. So I will need to disconnect the negative first and then work on the positive end, so that it breaks the circuit correctly. Forgot to mention, once I've disconnected all this stuff, I'm actually going to be removing this plastic covering. It's pretty badly worn out, and it's pretty ugly anyway, so I'm going to be disconnecting it. I need to put structural framing anyway against the metal, so that I can secure it in. Yeah, I'm gonna be quite happy when that disappears. Okay, first job I'm going to do is remove this wooden housing, just so that you can see what I am going to do to the battery to remove it. One screw, super secure. Okay, so I am not sure if he hooked it up himself or if he got an auto electrician, but from what I can see, the car battery, the positive end is hooked up to a regulator, which is the way it's supposed to be, because that limits this battery from draining too much electricity from the car battery. With the negative end, it looks like it's going into the body. So all I need to do is to disconnect that, this wire here, and that will break the circuit. This secondary wire that's here, that is what is going to the inverter. So the inverter is what transforms the electricity from 12 volts to 240 volts, where I can plug my normal wall sockets into. It's this thing here. This thing here. So on the other side of it is where you've got your normal wall sockets. Okay, so I'm gonna need a socket wrench to unscrew the terminal. I don't think there's any danger for, sorry, I should rephrase that. While the car battery might only be 12 volts, there's still 100 amps going through that, which is a lot. You know, this thing can power my fridge, my electronics, my, you know, just to give you a little bit of a comparison, my laptop is 6 amps. So, you know, imagine getting electrocuted by, you know, 20 laptops all at once. I've been zapped by plugging in a USB before and it hurts. But I don't think there's going to be too much of a danger because I'm only touching the negative end. So long as I don't touch any positive ends, there's no complete circuit there. But I am still very nervous, and because the socket wrench is made of metal as well, I am actually just going to be cautious here and wrap it in electrical tape, and I will also use gloves. I have seen mechanics work on car batteries without any gloves or insulation of any sort, but I don't want to take that chance because there's actually no one here. So if I do get electrocuted, this is not what to do. This is not what you should be doing. Alright, so I've added 5 layers of electrical tape, which is about 2 millimeters. It should be enough. I am also going to be using leather gloves. Leather doesn't conduct electricity very well, just like rubber. Okay, let's get started. I hope this is way too big. Okay, let me find a smaller socket. So the socket, the wrench that I taped up, the head is too big for the socket that I actually need. So I'm gonna need to redo on the smaller socket. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Yes, so left to unscrew. Let's get started. Alright, I am just going to insulate this cable here because this is technically still a charged end because it's still connected to the main battery. So while I'm doing my works, I'm just going to insulate that rather than disconnecting the whole thing because I'm going to need to put it back together anyway. And there you go. And that is how you disconnect a battery. So for this end, since there's no complete circuit, I should be able to disconnect this all fine without worrying about, you know, getting electrocuted. While I was disconnecting all this equipment, it's a real good thing that I'm redoing the electricity because I noticed the inverter, he didn't actually put a grounding wire in there. I mean, it does have a surge protector on it, which would stop any overload, but having that ground is super critical for the appliances that I'm going to be using. I've got some my equipment is quite expensive, so I don't want to damage that stuff. 12 volt appliances are about 5 times the price of a normal appliance, so a thing like a fridge, a mini bar fridge would cost what, $100, but a 12 volts version of that can cost over $1,000 minimum. So I don't want to have to replace those expensive items. So my next job will be to unplug the positive terminal. So with the positive terminal, it is hooked up to the regulator. So the regulator, as I've mentioned before, is what cuts out the power when it's draining too much. So this one here, it's 140 amps, which is more than enough for this battery here, but the circuit breakers are 80 amps. The cut out and cut in is 13.3 volts, and cut out is 12.7. So if the battery for the car battery, if it goes below 12.7, it will cut the feed, so that you can start the car. I'm pretty sure car batteries, to actually ignite the engine, I'm pretty sure it's about 11 point something. So there's enough leeway for it to work. You might have noticed that the LED on means that it's engaged. The reason why it's off at the moment is because the car battery is not on. When the car battery is on, that light will come on to let you know that the appliance, the regulator, is actually working. So to dismantle this part, I don't really need to fiddle around with any of this stuff. All I need to do is disconnect that cable, the cable that's running to the car, which is this one here. So I'll get started on that, and once that's moved out of the way, I can remove the plywood and this ugly plastic. All right, it looks like he's terminated the cables after he's drilled the hole in. So I'm going to actually need to take apart this box. Yeah, I'll need to unscrew it from the frame. So once again, I will be insulating this positive terminal just to eliminate any potential hazards. Okay, so the second battery is now completely disconnected. I've insulated both positive and negative ends that are still connected to the car battery, but I shouldn't need to wear any protective gearing for removal of the rest of the equipment. I've finished removing the paneling and the equipment that was in there, and just gave it a quick vacuum. I'm just going to rip this up now, and we'll get started on the framing for the barrier. Okay, so I've removed that ugly plastic lining, and I've just given it a quick vacuum. Before I start on the framing, I might just lay down some of the vinyl planking here, because as you can see, the edge here, it's still viewable from the outside. I would like a lining on it anyway, because I don't know just yet what I am going to put behind here. My initial plan was to put the water tank behind here, but the water tank is actually quite big, and I'm afraid if I do put it there, there's not going to be enough headroom for me to sit down on. So I will need to remeasure it, but since I don't know what is going in there just this stage, I would like to line it. It is a little easier for me to contour these pieces here, because there's a ledge here, which means I can just draw underneath it. And I know that that's the curve that I'm going to need for this particular angle. Okay, I've got my edge here. Seems to be fine. I'm not bothering with insulating this bit. My feet aren't actually going to be touching the floor. It's going to be enclosed off with the bed slash lounge anyway. So it should trap any of the excess cold that comes in. So I'm just going to lie them straight on. I'm just putting the two pieces on. I don't think we'll need any more, because I'm building a barrier, not a barrier, the covering for the bed around here anyway. I just put that extra piece there because it's got this edge bit on here, so when I do put the trimming on, it'll look like it's all the way through. Yeah, so let's get started. Let's get started on the barrier, which I was meant to have started this morning. I know, it's still morning, 15 minutes in. So yeah, we'll take some measurements and I will show you my rough idea of what I have in store. If you remember earlier this morning, I picked up some plywood. This is structural ply as well, like the ones on the wall. I don't know if I'm mounting any cabinetry on there just yet, but it would be desirable to have that, but I just don't know about the headspace. I'm really worried about that, to be honest. But I'll show you the idea that I have for the barrier. So there's 4 pieces. I've got one in the cabin just to check and make sure it was right. So basically I'm gonna have two, maybe one piece actually fastened on to the frame, and then the rest of the pieces are going to be slidable. So that way, when I'm driving, I can have them open and still see out my rear window. But when it's nighttime and I want to sleep without people looking in, I will have it closed. And this should stop any light leakage going through to the front of the cabin as well. I'm going to have backing on it on the cabin side, and I'll probably paint it on the cargo bay. But yeah, so basically it's just sliding. Yeah, well, we'll take some measurements between the driver's side and the passenger side, just so that I can make sure that I'm not obstructing the rear view mirror, because I know a lot of people don't really use the rear view mirror, but I do. It's basically the go-to mirror that I use. My sister's so sweet. She chopped up some veggies and some hummus so I can snack on during the day. I think she knows I haven't really been eating, either not eating or just ducking up to the shops to get like a pizza roll, which isn't the healthiest thing to do every day. But yeah, sustaining me throughout the day. Thanks, sis. As I was just explaining, the one of these panels is going to be fastened onto the framing. I'm thinking the one behind the driver's seat, because the rear view mirror doesn't actually see behind the driver's seat, and there's no need for me to turn it to the driver's seat because there's no windows there. I can't see anything out there anyway. So basically it's going to sit there, and then I can have it sliding out to shut this area off. I will just check from the driver's seat and see if it is obscuring the vision or not. Yeah, so this edge here is not is not viewable at all on the rear view mirror, which bodes really well for me, because that means I can have the other boards hidden behind this one if worst comes to worst. But ideally I would like to have one here and one on that side, because it will take up less sliding room space. because then I'll only have to create one railing, whereas if I have them all behind this one, I will have to have 3 railings for it to slide on. Yeah, so this edge here is not is not viewable at all on the rear view mirror, which bodes really well for me, because that means I can have the other boards hidden behind this one if worst comes to worst. But ideally I would like to have one here and one on that side, because it will take up less sliding room space. Because then I'll only have to create one railing, whereas if I have them all behind this one, I will have to have 3 railings for it to slide on. So my idea is to use the 19mm framing. I'm just using the smaller wood at the moment, just so that it's easier to measure, but they're both the same thickness anyway, so it shouldn't skewer any measuring. My idea is to put framing like this, so 2 square ones at the bottom and then a plank on top, like this. That way it gets support from the bottom, but there's still a railing edge for it to slide on. I need to check and see if the water tank does fit here, because as I said, I still don't know if I'm putting it behind here. So let me just grab that and we will measure. So just noticed a problem doing that. The door is not going to close with this spout here. I'm just going to turn it around and hopefully the other end is flat. I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, it does fit. I am worried that if I have it this way, the spout is actually right on top of the battery. What to do about that? Might need to move the battery. I would prefer not to. Okay, so that battery water tank issue will cause a problem. I might move the battery somewhere else. Actually, let me just check and see if that is too high anyway. Yeah, I think it will be too high, because I'm sitting on the tank now. With the framing for the bed, it will elevate it an inch or 2 inches, which will mean my head will hit the ceiling. Okay, that's alright. I will use one of my backup ideas and put the water tank elsewhere. My answer to that question is solved. Let's start building the frame for the barrier. So there's a little lip here, so it feels very hard, and I'm assuming this is where this cover is coming onto. I would like to use that as well for support. The other thing is, when I put this down on it, it sits flat. Yeah, it sits flat. So I think I'll build using this as a base, baseline measurement, and then build the supporting structures on the side. I have my measurements for the framing. I'm just gonna measure. I'm gonna do one piece at a time, so I'm not wasting wood. So let's try it with one. Okay, now that I have my cuts, I'm just gonna check and make sure that they are aligned. Doesn't have to be exact, but you know, so long as it's touching the ground, it should be fine. Yeah, so it's aligned on both sides, and it is sitting flat. So I will continue cutting some more pieces and we'll use that. The reason I am doing it this way rather than this way is because it takes up less space. I know it doesn't seem like much, but this is 25 millimeters across, whereas this is 19. That 6 millimeters might not seem like much, but it actually is. Every little millimeter counts. There's been, for instance, that water tank would not fit if I put this down this way, whereas it will fit if I lay it the thin way. Oh, I was wrong. It's 42 mils across by 19. So it is quite a lot of difference there. I'm gonna use some wood glue to hold it into shape. Once it's dried, then I'll start drilling some screws into it just to make it a strong bond. While I'm waiting for the wood glue to dry on the support bases, I'm just going to take this panel here off. There's not one on that side. I'm pretty sure the previous owner may have taken it out, but not put it back in, because he did have cables running into it. So I will take this off to even it out. I'm not too worried about it because I'm going to be covering over it anyway. So I've had a look under this panel. It seems there's electronics in there. I'm assuming it is the central locking for the sliding door. So I won't be removing this panel. I'll just cover over it. Yeah, I'll just cover over it. Okay, so since I can't remove that panel, I will just cut out this wood to size so that it's not obstructing that. This wood glue should be dry by now. Let's test it out in the van with the cut piece that I just did. Yep. Whoops. So this is for that side, and I'll get the other one. Yeah, it seems to be holding up all right, even though I haven't screwed in any screws. So it goes down, yep, and this one down this way. Okay, I'm just gonna put you on a tripod and we will measure the straight line. Let's see how we went. That glue is not quite dry yet for that one. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. It can stand up on its own. I will be securing these bits into the metal, so I'm not worried about the back and forwards rocking. So yeah, actually, before I draw this in, I need to build a frame for the top bit as well. Yes, let's do that. I'm going to be building some cabinetry in the overhead bit here. It's just going to be a simple cabinet, so I'm just going to use a leftover piece of ply and put a straight angle here. Straight line across, and then secure it with the framing. I need to measure from the top down to see what obscures the rear vision mirror. So let me see how to do that. Let's use electrical tape in the middle. Actually, I got painter's tape. Let's use that. Okay, so I'm just going to use the painter's tape and mark off where I can see my hand coming through on, and then we'll measure it after that. I will do the same thing I did last time for a shorter and taller person to see if it's obstructing their view or not. This is my view here. Okay, so right here is my view. Let's do it for a taller person. Right here, it's a little bit above mine, and let's try a shorter person. Okay, let's go for the shortest person because the other two that are below it, it's not going to matter. It's more important that the short person can see than that 1 centimeter of storage space. Okay, so from the wrong way around. Yeah, so from the middle, because it does curve up, remember? So from the middle, it's 15 centimeters. So 15 centimeters height here, and yeah, I'll have to measure the other ones, but shouldn't be too... Okay, so it looks like there's actually not markings, but like I don't know what you call them, just like slots for where a Toyota made cargo bay would sit. So I will use those lines as a reference. Change of plans. I noticed during the measuring these smaller planks of wood, it's 1.2 meters, is actually perfectly lined to that that mark. It's actually above it. So rather than building modular frames, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, I can actually do this in one frame. So I'm just going to change this over, and we'll head up to the hardware store and pick up some proper wood, so some more of these planks, and I might just have one piece going across there. I will also need to get some brackets anyway, which I noticed I will need to secure this against the structure here and against the metal itself. So it's a lucky coincidence. Okay, I'm back from the hardware store with more wood. I'll just measure these up. I'm just gonna, with these pieces of wood, I'm just gonna put some structural pieces in between. That should be enough to support the weight of any cabinetry, any the sliding doors, any cargo that I do put in the cabinet. Yeah, let me build these, and we'll place them in. I'll just show you how I'm going to build the structural framing. So it's going to be in this pattern. This is going to be in the middle. So I am going to put some wood glue on it for now, let it dry. Wood glue, let it dry, and then screw in some screws. And then while that's drying, I will start on the next one. While those planks are drying, I'm just going to re-measure the cabinet that I'm going to be putting on. So basically it is just it's just one piece of wood. It's quite solid. It is treated pine. I think it's 19 millimeters. So I'll just have that laying across flat, and then I'll make a backing for it. It's been about half an hour. These structural pieces should be dry by now. Yeah, it's dry enough. Let's make sure they fit. Okay, that's coming off, isn't it? Okay, it still hasn't completely dried. One of the pieces just came off. I'm gonna start drilling into it anyway, because it's almost sundown. I was hoping to already have the frame up. Yeah, we'll drill it in today, and we'll start on the barrier tomorrow. Okay, so my 50mm screws seem to be too short, even though the plank is only 42. Not sure why, but it's just coming apart. There's nothing I can do about that right now. I am going to call it quits for the day, and we will head to the hardware store and get some longer nails tomorrow. Okay, I'm closing up shop. Let's recap what we did today. What did we do first? We discovered how the electricity works in the car, and we disconnected the battery and the inverter, regulator, and then we wasted a lot of time measuring up the structure, and found a shortcut. So we got the frames ready. We just need to screw them in, and then we can put the barriers up. I'm not expecting the barrier for the plywood for the barrier to take too long. I'm going to use my template trick with the baking paper again so I can get the contour. So that shouldn't take too long, but as we know, by today and every other day, things that seem like they won't take too long actually end up taking half the day. So I will try and plan as much as I can at home, but I do edit videos when I get home, so I will hopefully get a better idea and a plan in place for tomorrow. Once again, thanks for joining.